From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. It was a crushing victory for Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown. Brown led his Labour Party to a second win in Wednesday's general election. The Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party snagged 15 of the 17 seats that were up for grabs. That's one more seat than in the last election. But the main opposition party, the UPP, led by Harold Lovell, won one seat, All Saints East and St. Luke, as it did in 2014. While the BPM took the Barbuda seat from Brown's Labour Party. Lovell himself will not be in the parliament next year after losing his own district. Still, it was a day of celebration for the Prime Minister and his party.
The people have spoken. And as they say, the voice of the people is the voice of God. And I'm very pleased with the support that you have given to this great institution, the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, during this very short campaign.
Prime Minister Gaston Brown had predicted the Labour Party would win all 17 seats. Still, the loss of 2 constituencies didn't come as too much of a surprise.
We always knew that Barbuda was a toss-up because of the situation in Barbuda and all of the rancor that the BPM would have created. But it's unfortunate because the people of Barbuda would have made a decision that will stymie their own progress and development. Because we know exactly what the modus operandi of the BPM is, and that is to block progress.
Leading up to the election, Brown's Labour Party had been plagued with accusations of vote intimidation and vote buying. Brown has denied all the rumors. In his victory speech, he said he stands for all the people.
So to all the people of Antigua and Barbuda, whichever party you may have supported in this election, I offer you peace, I offer you love, and I offer you friendship. And I said to you that notwithstanding the rhetoric, that I genuinely love all Antiguans and Barbudans, irrespective of their political persuasion. And I said to you too, that that love will continue into perpetuity until I die. I will continue to love you and care for you and work hard for your development.
The Prime Minister and his team are ready to get to work. He says their top priority now is to put more money in people's pockets.
It will take some time for us to continue to increase incomes so that we can ensure that our incomes, our national income, and certainly our salaries and wages, our per capita income is equivalent of countries like the Bahamas and other high-income small island states. That is the objective that we have, to make sure that we continue to improve the living standards of the people of Antigua and Barbuda, to make sure that you have the capacity to own a home, to make sure you have the capacity to own a car, the capacity to get a scholarship.
Brown says the nation has secured more than $3 billion in investments for the next 2 years. The money will go towards building a new cargo port and an entertainment complex. He said the government will make sure these projects hire at least 40% of locals to help the unemployed.
Soyini Gray is in St. John's covering this election. She takes a look at the key challenges that lie ahead for the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party.
The Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party won the mandate of the people for a second consecutive term, which means that Prime Minister Gaston Brown has a full 5 years to implement the very serious and important infrastructural developmental projects that he says the country needs after being struck by 2 hurricanes in 2017, particularly Irma, which decimated Barbuda. Now, if you remember what the island looked like immediately after the hurricane, there was nothing standing, no buildings, no electricity poles, nothing. So Prime Minister Gaston Brown says those hurricanes created $222 million in damage, which is the equivalent of the country's GDP. That's a very heavy bill for any country to have to foot, and he needs full 5 years to implement very serious infrastructural development programs to initiate the healing of Antigua and Barbuda after the 2017 hurricane season. You also have to remember they're preparing for the 2018 hurricane. People who we spoke to on the ground yesterday says they're still recovering emotionally from Irma, and that is making it very difficult for them to even conceive of what hurricane season 2018 will be like. We also have to discuss the opposition, the United Progressive Party. They performed dismally in last evening's elections. Even their political leader, Harold Lovell, lost his seat. So many are now saying he has to really sit down and reassess if he has a political future in Antigua and Barbuda. We are heading into a press conference right now with Prime Minister Gaston Brown, who is going to address his jubilant population. Well, jubilantly address his population now that he's secured the mandate. But reporting from Antigua and Barbuda, I'm Sonia Gray for teleSUR.
So let's look back at how election day went in Antigua and Barbuda. Rolando Segura from our Spanish channel has a story.
The people of Antigua and Barbuda voted for the Labour Party and its plans to rebuild the nation.
It is essential to have a shared vision of developing our country with advanced technology and a strong economy.
Gaston Brown was able to retain a majority for his party in Parliament.
We've had a very peaceful election with no incidents. We used the ballot box to change our government, not bullets.
52,000 people voted for 7 political parties and 5 independent candidates, all vying for 17 seats in Parliament.
It's important because this is the Constitution. We all have the right to vote, and at least this time, we know we have made an effort to rebuild Antigua and Barbuda and take care of it.
Polls opened at 6 in the morning with 172 polling stations in 55 voting centres. Jared Thompson is one of the thousands of citizens of Barbuda that voted for the first time in Antigua.
We need to rebuild Barbuda again, so Barbuda can return to what it was. I miss Barbuda. I want to go back to my home.
This special constituency was set up for the people of Barbuda after Hurricane Irma left the island uninhabited for the first time in 300 years.
We have been emancipated for more than 200 years, so it is crucial for Antigua and Barbuda. Voting is essential for democracy.
The challenge now is to make the island sustainable against such climate change effects. A reconstruction that the Labour Party proposes for the good of everyone.
The Peruvian Congress has rejected the terms of the resignation of President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski. Kuczynski resigned on Wednesday afternoon, a day before Congress was to vote on his impeachment. He left the presidential palace soon after. Members of Congress, including some of his former supporters, had called on him to leave office immediately after videos published on Tuesday allegedly revealed the government trying to buy votes against his impeachment.
Party delegates and the chairman of this committee categorically and unanimously reject the president's letter of resignation. We have said many times that this is a crisis centered on accusations and serious questions of corruption. And finally, some videos and feeable audio recordings that, as I said earlier, remind us of the worst era of our past. We do not accept the terms of the president's letter. We want Peru to come first. We cannot be trapped by the specific terms of the letter, and we must go forward. We have agreed to evaluate the President of the Republic's request to resign.
Our correspondent Jaime Herrera brings us the latest details.
Peru is living a historic day, both in the Congress and in the streets. First at 4 p.m. local hour, it will be discussed and decided the terms to accept Pedro Pablo Kuczynski's resignation as President of the Republic. However, official sources confirmed that this resolution will not be approved until tomorrow morning. According to the President of the Peruvian Congress, Luis Galarreta, a power vacuum is not possible. So once the resignation is accepted, the new president has to automatically take the oath. In this case, Martín Vizcarra, Peruvian Vice President, and who was also acting as Peruvian Ambassador in Canada. He is currently traveling back to Lima to take on his new mandate. Also, different social movements have called for demonstration in the streets to protest against the Peruvian political class. People want new elections and a change in the Peruvian constitution that pushes the fight against corruption. Some members of the Congress could actually ask Martín Vizcarra to call for elections as soon as possible.
Let's take a look at some of the events that led up to the president's resignation. As cabinet chief For then-President Alejandro Toledo, in June 2016, Kuczynski was accused of pushing through a bill that favored the Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht. A year later, his finance minister had to resign over another corruption scandal. Throughout 2017, workers in different sectors staged waves of strikes against his neoliberal policies. And in December last year, PPK escaped a first impeachment attempt, apparently in exchange for granting a pardon to Alberto Fujimori. Prosecutors asked a judge late on Wednesday to bar Kuczynski from leaving the country hours after he resigned. They want to ensure he remains in Peru while investigations continue into payments his consulting firm received from Odebrecht. Kuczynski has denied any wrongdoing. He will have presidential immunity from prosecution until Congress formally accepts his resignation, something which Congress will likely move ahead with on Friday. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. The Brazilian Supreme Court is ruling on whether former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva can appeal a guilty verdict that condemned him to 12 years and 1 month imprisonment for corruption charges. The Brazilian Supreme Court has to decide if the former president's habeas corpus is acceptable. This is Lula's second last resort to avoid jail. Also, next Monday, the Porto Alegre court will hold a trial on another appeal filed by the former Brazilian leader.
Those who are calling me a thief should follow their mother, their children, their father, their aunt in supporting me. They don't have even 10% of my honesty.
Meanwhile, Lula continues the fourth stage of his caravan tour to be re-elected as president. He is now in Brazil's southern state of Rio Grande do Sul. Accompanied by former President Dilma Rousseff, Lula was greeted by an enthusiastic crowd of supporters. Our correspondent André Vieira has been following the caravan and sent us this report.
We continue to follow Lula's caravan through the south of Brazil. Yesterday, armed paramilitary groups threatened the caravan and tried to intimidate Lula's supporters. Yet, apart from these small fascist groups, the important thing here is the overwhelming support from those who came to greet Dilma Rousseff and Lula da Silva. This is one of the institutes built by the Workers' Party, one of the projects generated under Lula and Dilma's governments. Teachers, students and professionals gathered here to thank the former presidents for the gains under their administrations and to show their support for Lula. This is, of course, what the right wing can't stand. The love, gratitude and support that people show in spite of the attacks they receive from the opposition. People are often heard along the caravan route saying their lives were changed thanks to Rousseff's and Lula's governments. Next stop is the city of São Borja, to visit the memorials of João Goulart, former president, victim of the 1964 coup, and Getúlio Vargas, remembered for creating Brazil's labor laws.
That was André Vieira from Rio Grande do Sul. Chile has begun presenting its arguments in response to Bolivia's demand for access to the sea at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Chile's defense team, led by British lawyer Daniel Bethlehem, are attempting to demonstrate that Bolivia's case misinterprets historical facts. Bolivia, South America's poorest country, became landlocked after losing a 4-year war against Chile in 1883, forfeiting territory and its access to the sea. According to estimates, Bolivia's annual GDP growth would be at least 20% higher if it had not been stripped of sea access. Human rights activists whose relatives were war criminals during Argentina's military dictatorships in the 70s held a news conference. They say they want to spread the ugly truth about their family members. This comes as Argentina is about to mark the 42nd anniversary of the coup d'etat that brought the military junta to power. Around 30,000 people are thought to have disappeared during the brutal dictatorship from 1976 to 1983. Argentinian law prohibits these activists from testifying and providing information about their families, something they are trying to change with this campaign.
These accounts come to us from people who listen to our story and about our existence. For the first time, they are motivated to make clear that it's a lot of shame and loneliness because inside their own families, our stand is seen with rejection, and outside their families in society, the social representation is also not very favorable.
My father was already in prison serving a life term, but he was still in better physical condition. And he was being asked to repent and give information about the families that were hoping to bury their loved ones and find their grandchildren. Well, the answer, I think it was in various media outlets. I was told the same after I testified in the large mega trial in Mendoza in July 2017. I wasn't repenting anything. I have summed it up precisely. It was a long chat, very painful, and well, I feel at least I tried, but at an enormous cost, because it was coming across the worst I could possibly meet.
Victims of Panama's mass medicine contamination are calling on the government to recognize all victims and to offer them medical assistance.
Victims of the mass drug poisoning scandal in Panama have waited 12 years for answers.
Last February, we met with the president, and he instructed various ministers to seek solutions such as medical care, drug purchases, and evaluations. In May, we were told that all issues had been looked at, and all the victims will receive compensation. To date, we have no answers.
In October of 2006, the Panamanian Social Security Fund delivered 15,000 doses of a cold medicine which contained a toxic substance called diethylene glycol, an industrial solvent used in antifreeze. The drug was made by a Chinese chemical company which did not have a license to sell drug ingredients. As a result, around 700 people in 7 countries died. More than half came from Panama.
They don't want to resolve this. We are dying in the streets, little by little, we are dying. Every day one dies. When we hear 3 people died, the truth is 5 or 6 actually died, and they have gone unnoticed.
The number of people affected by the drug poisoning is believed to be in the thousands, but protest groups say the government only recognized 1,200 people. They're also up in arms over the punishment. 5 of the 11 accused were found guilty. 1 was sentenced to 5 years in jail, the rest just 1 year.
They were not animals. There are still many people suffering because of this. It's too much. There must be justice in this country. How is it a person who steals a cell phone gets 5 years in jail and they only get 1 year? My mom died from this.
The scandal has caused Panamanians to mistrust the public health system, even if more than 70% of the population depend on it.
In Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown has been sworn in for a 2nd term as Prime Minister. Brown took the oath of office a short while ago at the government's house in St. John's. Steve Roy Benjamin has been sworn in as his Attorney General. In Caribbean Westminster system, a government cannot be formed without a Prime Minister and an Attorney General. The rest of the cabinet will be sworn in later. Gaston Brown's Labour Party won 15 out of 17 seats. The opposition United Progressive Party won 1, and their coalition partner, the Barbuda's People's Movement, won the final seat. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after another look at what our multimedia colleagues report.
Eu vivi na maré a intervenção militar 14 meses. Os favelados e faveladas sabem exatamente o que é o barulho do tanque. Se esse parlamento é formado apenas por 10, 13% de mulheres, nós somos a maioria na rua. E sendo a maioria na rua, somos forças exigindo a dignidade e o respeito das identidades.
Welcome back. Palestinian teen icon Ahed Tamimi was sentenced to 8 months in prison in a plea deal between her and the Israeli military prosecution. Tamimi has agreed to plead guilty to 4 of the 12 charges she faced. She also has to pay a fine of $1,500. The 17-year-old was arrested in December last year after a video showing her slapping 2 Israeli soldiers became viral. Her sentence will include the time she has already served in jail, which means she will be free by July. Her lawyer, Gabi Lasky, said this is the best they could expect out of occupying authorities.
We won the military court because the moment they decided to keep Ayed's trial behind closed doors, we knew that this was not going to be a just trial. So after that, the prosecution understood that they have to erase all the violent charges against Ayed. So we can say
a high-level meeting of European leaders has begun in the Belgian capital of Brussels. The main focus, the implications of US President Donald Trump's decision to put higher tariffs on imports of iron and aluminum. The new taxes take effect on Thursday. European leaders will also discuss the terms of Britain's exit from the Union, the poisoning of a former Russian spy in the UK, and the breach of data at Facebook that affected 50 million users. Moving ahead, let's have a look at some other stories from around the world.
At least 6 people have been killed and 2 others injured in a blast at a chemical factory near Prague in the Czech Republic. The explosion took place inside one of the storage tanks of oil processor company Unipetrol. It's not known yet what caused the blast. According to the company spokesperson, no dangerous substances have leaked out in the incident. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has finally responded to the ongoing controversy over the breach of data of 50 million Facebook users. In a statement on his Facebook page, he accepted that there are some discrepancies from his company's side. He also said he will step up security settings for Facebook users. The controversy broke when media reports claimed British company Cambridge Analytica tricked users into providing their details through a quiz on Facebook. Later, this data was used to build voter profiles for US and UK political ad campaigns.
It makes me trust Facebook less and want to use it less. I did delete it for a little while, and I've had to recently undelete it to get in contact with friends, which I find annoying, but yeah, it makes me want to put my personal identity less on Facebook.
Judges of a Paris suburb court in France have told former French President Nicolas Sarkozy that he is formally being treated as a suspect in a corruption case. Sarkozy was in police custody for 2 days for questioning related to allegations that his 2007 election campaign received funding from late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. He has now been released from the custody but put under judicial supervision. 63-year-old Sarkozy has denied wrongdoing and has said the accusations are making his life hell. In Syria, a deal has been struck between Syrian government forces and armed rebels in eastern Ghouta to evacuate the town. The deal could mark a major step forward in government efforts to further secure the nearby capital, Damascus. Around 1,600 rebels and their family members are expected to leave Ghouta and go to Idlib, a hub for Islamic rebel factions. Since last month, intense fighting between the two sides has left hundreds dead.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. This and many other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.